As we all know, Palmetto State Armory makes junk rifles, right? They source their parts from companies like Midwest Industries or F.N. Hertzstall, and that they clearly use junk in their rifles. So, which is why Rob Ski was able to put one of these rifles, a real basic entry-level Palmetto State Armory carbine, through his 5,000 round torture test, and it's the first AR-15 to pass that torture test. A supposedly budget and junk rifle. Now, 5,000 rounds actually is not a lot. I see people, oh, well, I've got 2,000 or 3,000 rounds for my Daniel Defense, and I'd trust my life to it. Great, I would totally trust my life to a Daniel Defense rifle as well, but guess what? 3,000 rounds is really nothing. That's easily one high-speed, low-drag tactical training weekend where you're running through your super carbine operator course. Now, we know these rifles can handle it because they are sourcing quality components, and they're just passing the cost savings onto us because their volume and their sales are so high they can get away with doing that. They're not making, really, really high-end precision custom pieces, but they're using many of the same components found in those extremely high-quality builds. So before you mouth off and say that, oh, because your buddy didn't run out and spend, $1,000 on his upper receiver, he's got a junk rifle, maybe you should do a little digging around and figure out exactly where the parts for your rifle were sourced from. Now, this is a little bit of a repeat from a video I just did on this topic, but it needs to be rehashed again because there's too many elitists out there who need to feel they need to justify that they spent $3,000 on an AR-15 rather than going out and spending the money on more ammo or magazines. They just put it all into a rifle, their beautiful little safe queen that they maybe pull out 3 or 4 times a year and then go online and then rant and rave that they're just some super high-speed, low-drag operator because they spent $3,000 on a rifle that they barely can afford to shoot because they just put all their money into the rifle. So, something to bear in mind when you want to trash talk is that PSA managed to do it, and there's been a lot of supposedly really high-quality AK-47s and other things that Rob Ski has managed to break over at the AK Operator Union. And many carbine courses, of course, also recommend, you might go through almost 5,000 rounds in a few days at a high-speed, low-drag operator course, and most of those courses, if you look at their course description or their list, they almost always tell you to bring at least 2 rifles with you. So 2 AR-15s or an AR and a Tavor or at least a second rifle because they have so many breakages over there, these supposedly really high-speed, low-drag rifles, that they often tell you to bring a second rifle. So go look at the course descriptions of most of the really renowned tactical instructors and you'll see more often than not they suggest bringing a second rifle or a second handgun just in the event that there is a stoppage or a failure that can't be fixed right there. So, again, something to bear in mind when you want to trash talk somebody else's rifle. It's really counterproductive. We're all on the same page here, and I'm just trying to put out some information so you are aware as a consumer that you don't have to spend high dollar, that if you don't want to put a ton of money into the name brand, you can buy the Chaps. You don't have to buy the Ralph Lauren. By the way, that's the same company, for those of you who weren't aware. So, and in many cases with the AR world, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of components that are used by many of the same companies, and there's a lot of overlap, and many of the companies that produce some of the really high-quality parts also sell their components to supposedly lesser brands. And they're often just not labeled as to where the origin was, because obviously they don't want to compete with their own product. So, again, something to keep in mind. Yeah, there are a lot of guys making parts, but there are only a handful of forges, and again, many parts are indeed sourced from the same places. So do bear that in mind when you're going out and you're looking for parts and you're trash talking somebody's AR because you think it's a piece of junk. I've got almost exclusively so-called budget builds in my collection, and I've never had a hiccup on any of the custom builds that I've put together myself. Nothing. Not a single issue with any of them because I bothered to do a little research, I sourced the parts from good places, and I haven't had any problems. And if you do the same, you do your little due diligence and your little bit of research, you too will build yourself a nice quality carbine for a fraction of the cost that it would be to go to the store or go to one of the online vendors and pick up one of these supposedly really high-speed rifles. You can save yourself a ton of money, and in fact you can put away 2 or 3 AR-15s instead of just the one supposedly really high-speed quality one, and then have money left over for spare parts and magazines and other doodads and odds and ends to keep your rifles running for the next 20 years.